If burnout is so common, why are so few leaders talking about it? Most leaders don't talk about burnout until it's too late. But here's the uncomfortable truth: burnout doesn't come from weakness, it comes from a lack of awareness, boundaries, and support. You might think it's just part of your job and the job in general. You power through, you push harder, and hope it gets better. But what if burnout isn't just a result of your workload? What if it's a result of how you're leading? Over the last 9 years, every leader I've coached hits a wall eventually, if they haven't already. Not because they're weak, but because no one taught them how to lead themselves while leading others. So, in today's video, we're going to unpack why all leaders burn out and talk about what's really going on so that you can move away from leadership patterns like emotional exhaustion, blurred boundaries, and internal silent suffering, and hopefully move towards sustainable leadership, margin for what matters, and a healthier, stronger version of yourself. If you're new here, my name is Jared, and I'm a high school teacher turned leadership coach. For me, this topic isn't just theory. I've burnt out before, pretty bad, pretty painfully, and it did cost a lot. That experience reshaped how I lead, how I plan, and how I do my best to stay healthy. So in this video, we're going to break down the hidden drivers of burnout that most leaders miss, not just the surface level stuff, but what's really going on beneath the surface. And we're going to go over that in 5 different points. By the end, I hope to have a overview of what is really causing burnout beneath the surface. So with that said, let's dive into point number 1. At some point, leaders lack self-awareness. Burnout doesn't just show up overnight. It builds slowly, hidden in the background, masked as just a busy season or part of leadership. But in reality, burnout starts the moment we stop checking in with ourselves internally. We ignore the signals like the constant exhaustion, the irritability, the feeling that no matter how much we do, it's never enough. In order to prevent the signals from being ignored, we need to grow in our self-awareness. You see, you can't see where you're headed and you can't course correct if you don't even know you're getting there. So if you don't course correct, burnout will be inevitable. And so self-awareness is critical, but it requires something else. And that leads us to the second reason why leaders burn out. At some point, leaders lack boundaries. We talk about boundaries like they're optional, but for leaders, boundaries are essential. Without boundaries, everything feels urgent. Everyone gets access, and eventually the things that matter most get squeezed out. Boundaries are about establishing a perimeter around your personal and private spaces, as well as those same spaces at work, so that the world or urgency or emergencies doesn't come crashing into those spaces and ruining your own sense of self, but also sense of refreshment. In talking about boundaries in the book Dare to Lead, Brene Brown says, to weave this into office culture, leaders need to model appropriate boundaries by shutting off email at a reasonable time and focusing on themselves and their family. You see, boundaries aren't about saying no to your team. They're about saying yes to what matters most and modeling that for others. And once you have boundaries, you then need to create margin, which leads us to our third reason why leaders burn out. Before we get to the third point, I don't want you to just hear these ideas. I want to help you apply them. So I made a simple 1-page guide that summarizes these 5 root causes of burnout every leader needs to understand. And then it gives you 5 personal reflection questions to help you get honest about where you're at, followed by 3 questions that you can bring to your leadership team to open up meaningful conversations and create healthier norms moving forward. You can grab it using it in the link in the description below or on the QR code that I have on the screen. So my third point is that at some point, leaders lack margin. Margin is the space between your load and your limit. And without it, leadership becomes survival. Richard Swenson in his book Margin says, overload just happens. Margin, in contrast, requires great effort. When you're always at 100%, there's no space for reflection, no energy for people, and no room for your best work. And what's really essential is that, according to Michael Hyatt in his book Win at Work and Succeed at Life, Rest is the foundation of meaningful, productive work. Building in margin for rest, for thinking, for connecting is not a luxury. It is the only way to stay in the game long term. And if a leader creates margin, leaders then need to practice vulnerability, which leads us to the fourth reason why leaders burn out. At some point, leaders lack vulnerability. Most leaders hit burnout because they're carrying too much alone. They don't want to seem weak, so they keep the mask on. But hiding the struggle is the struggle. Brene Brown says it really well in Dare to Lead. You can't fully grow and contribute behind armor. It takes a massive amount of energy just to carry it around. Burnout feeds isolation, but vulnerability creates connection. It allows people to help, and it creates the kind of support system every leader needs. Now, you might be thinking, I am a vulnerable person, but something is still missing. And that leads us to point number 5 as to why leaders burn out. At some point, leaders lack rhythms to recover. Awareness, boundaries, and vulnerability are all character qualities we need to develop. But if you want to sustain these things, then you need good rhythms or habits. Things like weekly planning, team check-ins, margin in your calendar. These are not nice to haves. They're structure for your sanity. And it doesn't just stop there. Daily rhythms matter too. Things like getting consistent sleep, regular exercise, staying hydrated, and taking time to nourish relationships outside of work. These are not indulgences, these are investments. Healthy leaders protect their energy. That means shutting work off at a reasonable hour. It means building in intentional time for personal renewal. It means guarding the boundaries between work and life with clarity and consistency. Systems, good rhythms, and habits will not make burnout disappear overnight, but they give you the rhythm, clarity, and space you need to stay grounded overall. And that's what keeps you leading strong. Ideas are easy to hear, but hard to apply. And that's why I created the resource I mentioned earlier. It's a simple one-page guide that helps you turn these ideas into some actionable, reflective steps for yourself and your team. Please don't just watch this video, go do something with this information. Grab the guide using the link below or in the QR code that I'm putting on the screen. When leaders burn out, it's not because they're weak, it's because they've been taught to lead others before learning to lead themselves. Burnout isn't about how hard you work, it's about how well you recover, how well you listen to your internal limits, and how clearly you lead from within. If you want to be a better leader, start by being a healthier one. If this video hit home for you and you want to learn a little bit more about my personal journey, go ahead and check out this video over here where I discuss why I ignored my limits for so long and what I learned as a leader. But if you are interested in a very practical how to prevent burnout video, go ahead and check out this video right over here where I talk about how I prevent burnout in order to lead well. If just one or none of these videos are on the screen, then they haven't been published, so be sure to get subscribed to see them when they come out, and I'll see you guys in one of these videos.